The keto diet and intermittent fasting are both safe and effective ways to lose weight, if they're done the right way. Understanding the basic principles of metabolism and nutrition behind both methods can boost their effect. Because keto is not as simple as just cutting out carbs, just as intermittent fasting is not as simple as periodically starving yourself. Today, Dr. Daniel Monti joins Vital Signs to present keto and intermittent fasting side by side. He has guided patients in using both methods while mixing in his own nutritional expertise to optimize weight loss and health results. Which drops weight faster? Which is riskier? Which is easiest to stick to, keto or intermittent fasting? Welcome to Vital Signs, where we learn how to get healthier from all angles, from the biochemical and nutritional to the things we do that nourish our minds and our souls. I'm Brendon Fallon. Dr. Monti is professor and founding chair of the Department of Integrative Medicine and Nutritional Sciences at Thomas Jefferson University, where optimizing brain health and micronutrient therapies are among the specialty treatments offered. Dr. Monti, great to have you back on Vital Signs again.
Always a pleasure.
And you're there looking like a man in very good shape. I know that you pay close attention to your own diet and watching your weight. Two methods that are very popular on social media, the ketogenic diet, the keto diet, and intermittent fasting. I'm interested to know where you stand with these two things. Which is one better than the other? And maybe we could start by looking at the keto diet. What is this, and why does it work?
Well, these diets are very different, but yet there's also some overlap. And I've used both diets in my practice, and I've tried them both because I try everything. And starting with the ketogenic diet, this is an interesting one because it was developed decades ago, not as a weight loss diet, as many people use it for now, but really as a way of controlling seizure disorders in children. A neurologist had the idea that if he changed the fuel source to the brain from glucose to ketone bodies, which is an unusual fuel source, that it might have a stabilizing effect on the brain. You can only do that when you achieve so-called ketosis, which means you have such little glucose store that the body starts to mobilize fat or utilize the fat that you're ingesting and then breaks it down in the form of ketones or ketone bodies, and that becomes the alternative fuel source. Yet, it never became super popular because it's a very difficult diet to adhere to, especially for children. Now, it became in vogue again, probably in the 70s, and then had a resurgence again in the 80s, 90s, because one of the things that happens when you're on a ketogenic diet is you lose weight.
What kind of results have you seen with patients recommending the keto diet to them?
So the keto diet has some benefits, and whatever diet I choose, it's sort of based upon the profile of the person that's in front of me, what their likes and dislikes are, what their lifestyle is, because the ketogenic diet is a very specific diet. One group of people that I've used the ketogenic diet on are people that are really ready to take a serious step towards weight loss, people who are overweight in an unhealthy way. They have a pattern of eating that is often very problematic when it comes to certain types of food groups. And we need something to really jumpstart their metabolism and jumpstart the system. And if we do it in a safe, healthy way over, I'd say 2 to 3 months, you can get some pretty good results with the ketogenic diet. Like over a 3-month period of time, I've seen people lose 30, 35 pounds.
And in most cases, they're able to sustain that to some degree?
So that's a great question. Sustaining it depends upon what you do after the initial ketogenic diet. It generally doesn't work as a long-term diet. There are some people that stay on it long-term, but you have to be very careful because there's pros and cons to the diet. It does have a stabilizing effect on cardiovascular disease. It can normalize lipid profiles, but also it can go the other way. If you're not strict, and a lot of people sort of lose their strictness after a couple of months and say, oh, I'm going to be keto, non-keto, and they're going in and out of ketosis, that's when you can actually mess up your blood lipids. And so I like to see it as a circumscribed diet over a period of time, and then we transition into a low carb, high in healthy fat, and lean protein diet. So I see it as an initial step, and then we transition into something that helps us have that long-term success in terms of health outcomes, but also diet, also body weight.
And not quite the level of abstinence that I imagine would be required.
Right. So with that ketogenic diet, you have single digit numbers of carbs a day to stay in ketosis for many people. Now there are convenient ways for people to get that feedback. There's urine strips that are easily accessible now that let you know that you're, excreting ketone bodies. It's a relative indication that you're in ketosis. You don't need it to be an ongoing blood test like in the olden days. So there's ways that people can get that feedback and to know, oh, wow, I ate too much of this. I thought that would be safe, and it took me out of ketosis. It doesn't take much. And, the body prefers glucose as its fuel source. So when you trick it and you're using ketone bodies, you have to think about, when are we mobilizing fat like that? It's usually during starvation. So when people are on a long trek and there's no food and they've lost their way and it takes 2 days to get back, they go into ketosis because they've used up all their glucose stores, and now the body is mobilizing the fat exclusively, only the fat, as the fuel source to keep your body going. You sort of create that sort of false state when you do a ketogenic diet by having a relatively high fat, moderate protein, very, very low carb diet. The other thing, that one misconception about the ketogenic diet is that it's a very high protein diet. So people are like, oh, I'm going to eat lots and lots of meat. That actually doesn't work, because an excess of protein causes a biochemical process called gluconeogenesis, and there's a conversion into glucose. Because again, the body is very efficient at finding ways of getting glucose as its fuel source. And so it is not a super high protein diet. And in fact, when people I know have tried the diet, or when I've worked with people on the diet, they've found when they're testing the urine that a very high protein diet kicks them out of a very high protein meal, for example, kicks them out of ketosis.
This is sounding more involved, like getting into ketosis could be a little bit more complicated than it would seem at face value.
It's not easy. It really requires a lot of rigor to be on that diet.
And the other side is that you can eat fats, but there's a lot of room there to eat the wrong fats. So I'm interested, Dr. Monti, how do you do the keto diet? Could you give a snapshot of your day on the keto diet? Because I know this will be a healthy way to do it.
Right. So for me, when I did it, I stocked up on a lot of the healthy fats that I like to eat. So avocados, but I had to be careful of not too much because there's some carbohydrates in the avocados. So avocado oil, olive oil, a lot of the oils that I like, right? Now, I did eat a little more animal fat than I normally do, but in moderation. Because if you're just eating bacon all day, that's still not good for you and can still lead to problems with blood lipids and also inflammation and things like that. So it isn't that you'll lose weight. If you're in ketosis, you'll lose the weight even if you do it in a relatively unhealthy way. And for some people, losing the weight is still healthier than anything. But I like to do it the right way. And the right way is to balance healthy fats with other sources of fat so that you're getting in a good amount of fat to feel satiated. And then green vegetables. So green vegetables are super low in their net carbs. So I would make a lot of sort of smoothies with my spinach and kale and a low glycemic, low carb protein source, such as an isolated pea protein. I like the plant-based sources. And then I would add in a healthy amount of good oil. Like I would buy some of those health oil mixtures that had 3s and 9s and add that in there and have a pretty fatty but also nutritive drink in the morning. That's how I would start the day. You can do some eggs, you can do some other things like that as food sources.